As someone who had never played a roguelike before, I had no idea what to expect when I first played Enter The Gungeon a couple of years ago. You see, I'd mainly stuck to sports games, FPS games and RPGs, so this was a completely new experience, and one that would bring with it loads of new mechanics and challenges. From the top-down camera, to the classic art style, and even the immense difficulty, the game had lots of charm to it, and even despite the fact that it took me hours just to get past the first boss, I knew I was playing something special. Them first few runs had me hooked, and I could see that the many friends that had recommended me the game were correct in their judgment. But now, as someone with almost 100 hours in this great game, I think I'm finally ready to give it a review. So prepare to flip a table and grab some popcorn as I waste no more time and look at what makes Enter the Gungeon so fun. The first thing that really caught my attention about Enter the Gungeon and the roguelike genre as a whole was the difficulty of them. To me, these games are a perfect callback to the early days of gaming, where a video game being difficult was a purposeful decision to create more replayability. Enter the Gungeon is able to encapsulate this brilliantly. It doesn't rely on factors such as a weekly content reset or a drip feeding of content to keep you coming back, but instead, the game will knock you down over and over again, but somehow, you'll find yourself getting up again and again, and slowly but surely getting further and further in. And it's this addictive gameplay loop which keeps you playing. The game is so fast paced and easy to restart that time simply flies by as you play it. A successful run of the game can take up to an hour, but this goes by in what feels like 10 minutes, as you go from floor to floor, avoiding thousands of bullets and completing a wide range of different randomised encounters. All of this replayability is good in theory, but Enter the Gungeon needs some good mechanics to put that into practice. And while it's fair to say, it's not short of a few of them. Firstly, let's talk about the gameplay loop. Like all roguelikes, Enter the Gungeon comes with random rooms and enemies. These have a wide selection and increase in difficulty as you get to the later floors. The rooms might be filled with cover, or even have none at all. There might be a parkour section, or even some traps to keep it interesting. Mix in that with a wide variety of enemies, all with their own mechanics and well-crafted AI, and you have a winning formula. The enemy variety is a particular standout here. Most enemies are designed after some kind of weaponry or bullet, and as a result, there's lots of room for creativity. From the simple shotgun using enemies early on, to the snipers during the mid-game, or even the cubes that track your movement in the later floors. There is just so much here, and the combinations of both enemies and room design is seemingly endless. The enemies, as I mentioned before, have good AI, so you'll be forced to use clever tactics to take each one out. But if you do want to take them out, you'll need some good weapons and abilities. And that is where we find Enter the Gungeon's greatest strength. With hundreds of different weapons and abilities to choose from, the combinations are once again endless. From again, simple things like pistols, to some more advanced laser rifles, to the outright spectacular weapons that even someone like me with almost 100 hours haven't even used all of them yet. Add to this the passive and active abilities that can also be spectacular in their own right, and you have plenty to keep you engaged. One of my favourite features in the game is again something that makes Gungeon so unique. The synergies in this game are another thing that keep replayability high, as it's so fun to try them. Mediocre guns can be turned into fantastic late game weapons when paired with another item, and some of the combinations are simply so enjoyable to use. All of these items are usually found either in the shop on each floor, or found in the many chests on each floor, which scale in their rarity, increasing that inevitable satisfaction when you see the rarest ones, and that you end up getting an S-tier item. There are simply so many items in this game that I possibly cannot begin to do them justice, and I mostly use the wiki to understand the different combinations, and that to me proves the amount of content that Enter the Gungeon has in its core gameplay loop. I've already talked about the enemy design, but now it's time we talk about the enemies that cap off each floor, and they are the boss fights. Not including any of the secret floors, because yes, Enter the Gungeon has them too. We have 13 base game bosses, 5 of which you'll fight on a successful run. From floors 1 until 4, you fight 1 of 3 randomly selected bosses each run, with the final boss always being against the dragon on the 5th floor. The floor bosses scale in difficulty depending on what floor you're on. Floor 4 is definitely the biggest test to see if you have what it takes to beat the game, with 3 extremely tough bosses to choose from. Floor 1 on the other hand, may seem easy to me now, but I cannot forget how tough it was when I started. From a bird who has a massive machine gun, to a king who shoots at you with an absurd number of bullets, or even the 2 large bullets that use teamwork to try and take you out, the creativity is on show straight away. And I won't spoil many more, because simply put, they can be wonderful to experience. But once again, the creativity is running free, and you will fight a range of tough bosses in your time playing. You may have caught me there mentioning the secret floors that Enter the Gungeon has, because yes, it has a lot of them. In addition to the 5 regular floors, there are also 5 secret floors, with multiple new boss fights, and act as the true ending to the story, in which I won't spoil. What I will spoil though, is how you get to the first secret floor, just to give you an idea of how secret and cool they can be. Once you're on floor 1, you will come across a room with a fireplace and a barrel of water. Once the room has been cleared, you want to push the barrel into the fireplace, putting out the fire and leaving behind a button. After it's been pressed, it opens up a secret room and a trapdoor requiring 2 keys. And after you've done all of that, you can finally enter the first secret room, containing lots of new enemies and a boss fight at the end. But that is just the start of many secrets in this game, and I would encourage you to find more, as that's where the true endgame really begins. The real cherry on top of all the gameplay mechanics and replayability of Enter the Gungeon for me is its overall charm. The art style and classic feel go a long way in this aspect, but there are little things in the game too, such as finding an NPC in a run or completing a short challenge for them. But the thing that adds the most in this area is the various Easter eggs and references. It's so awesome to open a chest and see an item from your favourite piece of media, and it feels like the majority of the items in the game have some sort of hidden reference. An example of some of my favourites are finding the alien blaster in a chest, which just so happens to share a strong resemblance to this pistol from Halo. And then the synergy that goes with this weapon might be even better, as it turns it from a basic pistol into a rifle that also shares a strong resemblance to one from Halo. It's these little references that make the game that much more fascinating, and it keeps me going for more runs to see if I can find any more items from my favourite games. I think it's fair for me to say that when I first played Enter the Gungeon, I wouldn't have expected to get as hooked as I am on the game. That is a testament to how addictive the core gameplay is, and shows that all the little things can play their part in making you run through the game again and again. I'm so glad that there are games like this still out there, that have released in the last 5 years that still respect the player. They don't force the player into spending money on the item shop or DLC. They don't force the player into coming back every week so they don't miss out. But instead they force the player to have fun, and fun is exactly what you'll get when you play Enter the Gungeon. It's for these reasons why I give Enter the Gungeon an 84 out of 100 score. If you like roguelikes, and somehow haven't tried this game, then I have to ask, what are you doing avoiding it? If you're someone who hasn't tried a roguelike, or maybe looking at the game differently due to its older art style, then I implore you to give this game a shot. I was in the same position, where I didn't believe a game that looked like this could be this fun in the 2020 decade, but I was proven wrong, and it's completely changed my outlook on games. The fantastic gameplay mechanics will draw you in, and the art style will win you over eventually. And that is why Enter the Gungeon is so fun.